Welcome back to Rightly So, the podcast that isn't afraid to tell it like it is. I'm your host, James, and as always, it's a privilege to be your guide through the political wilderness.
And I'm Claire. It is great to be back in the saddle for episode 2. We've got a lot to unpack today, and it's a topic that, frankly, has been weighing heavily on my mind. And I know it's been on yours too, James.
It really has. We're calling this episode the Persian Pivot, because the Iranian War, a conflict that was supposed to be a decisive, short-term action, has pivoted into something else entirely. A long, costly, and increasingly unpopular engagement that's having serious consequences right here at home.
Consequences that are hitting every American family in the wallet. And that's where we need to start, because this isn't some abstract foreign policy debate anymore. This is real life.
So let's put it on the table. Both of us, and I think most of our listeners, initially supported the decision to act. The Iranian regime was a clear and present danger. But the execution has been a catastrophe.
It's been a complete bait and switch, James. The promise was surgical strikes. We heard that phrase 1,000 times. Surgical. It was meant to sound clean, precise, and limited. They showed us satellite images, talked about smart bombs, and assured the American people that this would not be another drawn-out war.
No boots on the ground. That was the other big promise.
Right, no boots on the ground. And yet, here we are, months down the line. We have thousands of advisors and special forces in the region. The mission keeps expanding. First, it was just targeting missile sites. Then, it was Revolutionary Guard bases. Now, we're essentially policing the entire Strait of Hormuz. This is classic mission creep.
And it's not just the personnel, it's the equipment, the resources. We're burning through incredibly expensive munitions. We're putting wear and tear on our naval fleet, on our aircraft. All of this attention, all of this materiel is focused on Iran, while we have real strategic threats like China watching and taking notes.
That's such an important point. Our military readiness is being degraded for a secondary conflict while our primary adversaries are growing stronger. It's strategically myopic.
It is. But for the average person, the strategic concern is secondary to the immediate financial pain. That's what's hitting home, the gas at the pump.
It really is. I was talking to my brother last week. He runs a small landscaping business. He told me his fuel costs have more than doubled. Doubled! He's trying to figure out if he needs to lay off one of his guys before winter because he can't afford to keep his trucks running and make payroll. This is the real-world cost of a mismanaged war.
That's a terrible story, and it's one being repeated in millions of homes and businesses across the country. And it's not just the gas, is it? It's the knock-on effect. The cost of shipping goes up, so the cost of everything on the shelves goes up with it. The lumber for a new deck, the produce at the grocery store, the parts for your car, it all gets more expensive.
And it's not just about the cost of goods, James. It's about the erosion of savings. The inflation from this conflict is a silent tax on every American. The money you've been putting away for retirement, for your children's college education, it's worth less and less every single day. This war is actively making the future of American families more precarious. And it's not just about the cost of goods, James. It's about the erosion of savings. The inflation from this conflict is a silent tax on every American. The money you've been putting away for retirement, for your children's college education, it's worth less and less every single day. This war is actively making the future of American families more precarious. Exactly. We were just starting to see inflation come back down to a manageable level. People were finally starting to feel like they could breathe again financially. And now this. It feels like we're right back in the thick of it, and it's because of a policy decision that is looking more and more like a massive blunder.
It's economic self-sabotage. And for what? Is Iran's regime gone? No. Are they weaker? Maybe marginally, but they're still there, and now they're more entrenched than defiant than ever. We've paid a tremendous economic price for a questionable strategic gain.
Which transitions us perfectly into the political arena, because if we're feeling this frustration, you can bet that the political operatives in the Democratic Party are seeing it as a golden opportunity.
Right, they're crafting the attack ads as we speak. You can picture them, can't you? Grainy footage of a gas pump, the numbers spinning higher and higher, with a deep, ominous voice saying, "The Republican war is costing you a fortune."
And the hypocrisy is just staggering. These are the same people who just a few years ago were marching in the streets with no blood for oil signs. Now they're perfectly happy to watch a war drag on if it means they can score political points against us in November. Their supposed principles are completely situational.
Of course they are. Power is their only principle, but their hypocrisy doesn't make their attacks any less effective. A simple emotional message about gas prices will beat a complicated argument about foreign policy 9 times out of 10, especially with low information voters.
And that's the danger. In those key swing districts, the suburbs of Pennsylvania, Arizona, Wisconsin, voters are not deep in the weeds of our Iran strategy. They just know it costs them $100 to fill up their minivan, and they're going to blame the party in power.
That's what has me so worried. We fought tooth and nail to win back the House. We have a razor-thin majority in the Senate. All of that is now in jeopardy. Everything we've worked for, appointing constitutionalist judges, securing the border, cutting taxes, it all hinges on holding Congress. And this war is the single biggest threat to that.
It's political malpractice. It truly is. We had the Democrats on the ropes. Their agenda is unpopular. Their president has record-low approval ratings. We had a clear path to a historic victory in the midterms, and we handed them a lifeline.
And you're starting to see the cracks in our own party, too. Some very solid, reliable conservatives in the House and Senate are starting to ask questions. They're demanding to know what the exit strategy is. When you start losing your own side, you know you're in deep trouble.
Which brings me to the strangest part of this whole story, the beginning. I have to admit, James, in those first few days, I was swept up in the optimism. I really thought this could be a historic moment.
Oh, me too, 100%. And it all came down to those videos, didn't it? The ones that were flooding social media. It was a very powerful narrative being pushed.
It was incredible to watch. They had handwritten signs in English, "America save us," and "Trump be our voice." They were literally waving at the sky as if they were welcoming the bombers. It was presented as this groundswell of popular support for our actions.
And I think we have to acknowledge who was pushing that narrative. It was the usual suspects, wasn't it? The professional hawks, the think tank warriors, who have never seen a conflict they didn't want America to join. They saw an opportunity and they seized it.
Yeah, that's right. They amplified these videos, got them on cable news, and created a sense of inevitability. They made it seem like we were being called upon, that this was our moral duty.
And the central image of that whole campaign remains just objectively hilarious. The idea of a civilian population cheering for airstrikes.
Oh, it's completely absurd, like they're setting up a tailgate party. Hey honey, pack the cooler, the F-35s are doing a flyover at 7, let's hope they hit the Ministry of Intelligence this time.
Oh, darn, they missed. Better luck tomorrow, I guess. It's black humor, but it highlights how ridiculous the premise was. And yet, so many of us, in government and in the media, took it at face value. We wanted to believe we were the good guys riding in on a white horse.
We got played. It was a sophisticated piece of perception management. A few dozen people with signs, some clever editing, and you create a global narrative. It was the 21st century version of "they'll greet us as liberators with flowers." Except this time, the flowers were replaced with Twitter hashtags. And it seems the bill for all that perception management is finally coming due, James, and it is a whopper.
A whopper is one word for it. I saw the notice from the Department of War this morning. They're asking Congress for a supplemental budget for the Iran operation. I love the language. It sounds so optional, like it's a little bonus for a job well done. Not a sign that they completely mismanaged the initial projection. Before we wrap up, let's do something a little different. We're going to run through our top 5 stories of the week, the headlines beyond our main topic that we think deserve your attention. Story number 1, the Lebanon-Israel talks. Claire, what's your read?
James, I'll believe it when I see it. This is performative diplomacy. Lebanon is not a free actor. Hezbollah controls the country, politically, militarily, financially, and Hezbollah answers to Tehran. So until you deal with Iran, any agreement out of Beirut is worth about as much as the paper it's written on.
100%. And compare this to the Abraham Accords. Those worked because they were built on shared strategic interests. Gulf states who were just as terrified of Iran as Israel was. That's peace through strength and mutual benefit, not wishful thinking brokered by diplomats who want a photo op.
Exactly. Real peace deals require real partners. And right now, Lebanon doesn't have the freedom to be a real partner. Until that changes, we're just going in circles.
Story number 2. J.D. Vance's visit to Hungary to meet with Prime Minister Viktor Orban, and predictably, the globalist establishment lost its mind.
Of course they did, because Orban represents everything they hate. He's a leader who actually puts his own country first. He's protected Hungary's borders, pushed back on mass migration, and defended traditional family values against the EU's relentless social engineering. He's their worst nightmare.
And Vance going there sends a message that there is a growing movement of Western leaders who are done apologizing for putting their own citizens first. The left calls it nationalism. I call it common sense governance.
The outrage from Brussels and the mainstream media just tells you everything. They're not angry because it's wrong, they're angry because it's working.
Story 3, and this one is more somber. A powerful and dangerous typhoon has been battering parts of the Pacific. Our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone in its path.
Absolutely. These natural disasters are devastating, and the human cost is immense. What always strikes me, though, is how it's the communities themselves, neighbors helping neighbors, local churches and charities who are always first on the ground, not the bureaucrats.
That's such a great point. FEMA gets all the headlines, but it's always the guy down the street with a chainsaw and a truck who shows up first. Individual preparedness and community resilience, that's the real safety net. You cannot outsource your survival to a government agency.
And that's not a political point, that's just a practical one. Be prepared. Know your neighbors. That is the lesson every single time.
Story 4. What is being called a major global AI security win. An international framework has been agreed upon to prevent advanced AI technology from falling into the hands of rogue states. And on the surface, that sounds great.
It does sound great. And look, keeping AI out of the hands of North Korea or Iran, absolutely necessary. No argument there. But here is my concern. Who is writing these rules? Because these international bodies have a long history of using security as a pretext to regulate and control things in ways that end up hamstringing American companies while our adversaries just ignore the rules anyway.
The Trojan horse problem. Every global governance framework starts with a reasonable goal and ends with unelected bureaucrats telling American innovators what they can and cannot build. We need to be very, very watchful about what we're actually signing up for here.
Cautious optimism is the right posture, but eyes wide open.
And finally, Story 5. Nissan has announced a new turnaround strategy. Facing massive losses, they are cutting underperforming models, slashing costs, and refocusing on what is actually profitable. Claire, I found this oddly refreshing.
I know what you're going to say, James, and you're right. Here is a major corporation that looked at its balance sheet, faced reality, and said, we cannot keep doing what isn't working. They are cutting the dead weight. They are focusing on results. It's basic fiscal sanity.
Imagine that concept in Washington. Imagine a government that looked at its bloated budget, identified the programs that aren't working, and cut them. A budget based on reality, not on re-election. Nissan's shareholders demanded accountability. Who demands accountability from Congress?
Nobody, apparently. But maybe that's a conversation for another episode.
I think it is. All right, that's our top 5. A lot going on in the world beyond Iran, and we'll keep covering it all. Perfectly put. Hard and very expensive lesson in not letting your foreign policy be dictated by what's trending on social media. You have to look at the cold, hard facts. You have to ask what's in America's long-term interest.
And our interest is not in being bogged down in another endless, thankless conflict that drains our treasury, degrades our military readiness, and hurts our own citizens. Rightly so.
On that sobering note, I'm afraid we're out of time. This Iran situation is far from over, and you can trust that we will stay on top of it, providing the kind of clear-eyed, conservative analysis you won't get from the mainstream media.
Absolutely. We want to extend a sincere thank you to everyone who downloaded and listened to the Rightly So podcast today. Your support means the world to us.
And be sure to join us next week. We're diving deep into the quiet war on your wealth, the push for a central bank digital currency. It's a threat to your freedom and privacy, and we'll tell you what you need to know. Don't miss it.
Until then, think for yourselves, stay informed, and stay free.